They didn't fire first, they closed the distance. Quietly, on purpose. The Typhoon saw two contacts, but it didn't see the plan. And that's when everything shifted. The Typhoon wasn't hunting, it was watching. A single RAF Eurofighter sat high and clean, holding a patrol line over cold water and broken cloud. The mission was routine on paper. Identify, shadow, report. No drama, no hero moves, just control. That's the part people misunderstand. Air combat doesn't start when missiles launch. It starts when someone decides where the fight will happen. The Typhoon pilot had the advantage most people talk about: speed, altitude, and a jet built for quick reactions. The radar picture looked stable. One track, then another. Two contacts, far out, moving with discipline. SU-57s. Not charging in, not showing off, just closing. Here's what people miss. The first danger isn't the enemy jet, it's the uncertainty, because you never know what you're not seeing. The Typhoon sensors began building the story: range, heading, closure rate. But data isn't truth, it's interpretation, and interpretation depends on time. At long range, everything feels controllable. You have space to think, space to plan, space to call in support. The Typhoon had options: maintain distance, push forward for a better look, or turn away and keep the patrol line intact. But every option costs something. If he presses, he risks walking into a setup. If he holds, he gives them time. If he turns away, he gives up the airspace. And in modern air warfare, airspace is influence, it's permission, it's confidence. The Typhoon pilot kept his tone calm on the radio. Short calls, no extra words. A quiet update to the controller. Two contacts, possible SU-57, no weapons release authority, maintain track. That last part mattered, because without permission, this wasn't a fight yet, it was a test. The SU-57s kept coming, still outside the range where most people think combat begins, but close enough to change the math. This is where it changes. At this distance, you don't win with aggression, you win with positioning. You win by forcing the other pilot to choose too early or too late. The Typhoon stayed steady, nose slightly offset, keeping angles open. He wasn't trying to beat them, he was trying to keep control of what came next. But control is fragile, and the SU-57s were about to prove it. The distance didn't collapse all at once. It tightened, like a door closing. The Typhoon pilot watched the SU-57 track settle into a pattern, one slightly high, one slightly low, not random, not messy. It looked rehearsed, the kind of spacing that forces questions. Which one is the shooter? Which one is the bait? And the worst question of all, is there a third aircraft I don't see yet? The Typhoon's radar sweep updated again. The returns were there, but they didn't feel stable. The tracks would sharpen, then soften, a clean picture for a moment, then noise. Not a full blackout, just enough doubt to slow decision-making. That's how pressure starts, not with explosions, with uncertainty. The pilot adjusted his flight path, small changes, controlled. He wasn't trying to look dramatic, he was trying to change geometry, to stop them from building a perfect intercept. But the SU-57s didn't chase the same way older fighters would. They didn't mirror him, they didn't rush. They kept closing, but on a line that stayed uncomfortable. Not close enough to trigger panic, close enough to force attention. Here's what people miss. When two aircraft move as a pair, they're not just two jets, they're one system, one problem with two angles. The Typhoon's controller called out in his ear, range updates, headings, options. Calm voice, but the numbers were turning into time. 50 miles, 40, 35. At this point, the Typhoon could commit forward and try to take the initiative, push in, lock, and threaten a shot. Or he could hold and keep the patrol line, waiting for support that might be minutes away. Minutes are too long. This is where it changes. Because modern air combat isn't about who has the better jet, it's about who forces the first irreversible decision. The Typhoon pilot selected a weapon profile, not to fire, but to be ready. He tightened his scan, focused his radar cone, and tried to isolate one Su-57 at a time. It worked for seconds. Then the second contact shifted. Not away, across. A lateral move, a subtle cut that changed the angles. It wasn't aggressive, it was surgical, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It split his attention. The pilot felt the pressure rise, not in his breathing, but in his workload. Every extra second spent sorting the picture was a second lost. He checked his 6, clear. Checked again, still clear. But that didn't mean safe. The Su-57s were now inside a range where warnings start to matter, where radar locks aren't just information, they're messages, where a small mistake becomes a chain reaction. Then the first real signal hit. A brief spike, a hard tone, not continuous, not stable, a lock attempt. The Typhoon pilot didn't flinch. He didn't throw the jet into chaos. He made the professional thing. He made a choice, a controlled turn to change aspect, to break the geometry before it became a trap. But the Su-57s weren't trying to win with the first lock. They were trying to make him move. And the moment he moved, they got what they wanted. The formation shifted again, both Su-57s now closing from slightly different angles, compressing the space the Typhoon needed to breathe. No missiles fired, no flares, no drama, just the quiet realization. The fight was already underway, and the Typhoon was running out of room. People think the turning point is the first missile. It isn't. The turning point is the moment you realize the other side is deciding the tempo, and you're only reacting. The Typhoon pilot felt it as the geometry tightened. Two Su-57s weren't trying to beat him in a dogfight. They were shaping the airspace like a net, not closing for glory, closing to remove options. And options are everything. He had speed, he had altitude, but those advantages only matter if you can spend them when you want to. The Su-57s were forcing him to spend them early, small corrections, extra scans, constant recalculations. That's how control gets taken. The Typhoon tried to reset the fight. He went cold for a moment, turning away just enough to extend distance, just enough to force a longer chase. It's a classic move. Create separation, buy time, let the picture stabilize. But the Su-57s didn't follow the script. One stayed on the original line, the other cut inside. A quiet split, a pincer without theatrics. Here's what people miss. Going cold only works if the enemy lets you leave, and two aircraft working together don't have to let you do anything. The Typhoon's radar returned a cleaner lock on the high contact. For a second, it felt like control came back. The pilot's mind snapped into clarity. Prioritize one, threaten a shot, force them defensive. Then the low contact changed altitude. Not dramatically, just enough. The lock quality degraded again, not because the Typhoon radar was weak, because the situation was designed to be unstable. Two targets, two aspects, shifting ranges. Your system is strong, but your attention is finite. And that's the real limitation in modern air combat. The pilot called it out, short, professional. Two bandits, bracket, inside medium range, no shots taken, request support. Support was coming, but not yet. And the Su-57s knew that. This is where it changes. The Typhoon pilot now had to decide what kind of fight he wanted because the Su-57s were trying to choose for him. If he stayed high, he risked being boxed into predictable lanes. If he went low, he risked losing sight and awareness. If he turned in hard, he risked giving them a clean angle. If he extended again, he risked being chased into a worse position. Every move had a price. Then the moment arrived, quiet, fast, decisive. A new warning tone, stronger, more confident. Not a full lock, but enough to matter. The Typhoon pilot didn't wait for certainty. He couldn't. He dumped speed into a controlled brake, deployed countermeasures in a measured burst, and forced a geometry change that made the shot harder, if a shot existed at all. That's the truth people don't like. Sometimes you react to a missile that was never fired, because the threat of the missile is already a weapon. The SU-57s weren't trying to score a clean kill, they were testing his discipline, trying to make him waste energy, trying to make him show fear, trying to make him separate from his support picture. And the Typhoon pilot didn't give them chaos. He stayed controlled. Tight turns, short radio calls. He kept his jet inside safe parameters and refused to commit into the trap they were offering. For a moment, it looked like a stalemate. Two SU-57s still pressing, one Typhoon still alive, no weapons released. So who won? That's not the real point, because the outcome wasn't power, it was timing. When it ended, it didn't feel like an ending. The SU-57s didn't win the sky, the Typhoon didn't dominate the fight. They separated the way professionals do, because both sides understood the same thing. A clean exit is also a form of control. The Typhoon stayed on station long enough to confirm the trucks turning away, not chasing, not proving a point, just watching until the airspace felt stable again. His breathing stayed even, his hands stayed light on the controls. Because the real danger wasn't the two jets, it was what could happen if one pilot made the wrong decision under silent pressure. Here's what people miss. Modern air warfare is less about the aircraft and more about the system around it. Sensors, data links, controllers, rules of engagement, training, discipline. The jet is only the sharp end, and the sharp end doesn't choose the war. The SU-57s showed something important, not that they're unstoppable, not that stealth makes you invisible, but that a pair of fighters working as a coordinated unit can compress time and space until the other pilot feels trapped. That's a strategy, not a feature. Two aircraft can create uncertainty even without firing. They can force reactions without committing. They can pressure you to spend fuel, altitude, and attention. And attention is the one resource you can't refuel in midair. The Typhoon showed something just as important. You don't need to win the moment to survive it. The pilot didn't chase the perfect shot. He didn't force an engagement that wasn't authorized. He didn't turn a tense intercept into a gamble. He stayed disciplined, kept his energy, kept his picture, and waited for the moment where support and structure returned. That's doctrine. And doctrine is what keeps pilots alive when the situation stops being fair. This is where it changes, because the future of air combat isn't about one jet being better than another. It's about who controls the timeline, who controls the information, who controls escalation. The next fights won't be decided by a single dramatic dogfight. They'll be decided by networks and decision loops. Who sees first? Who understands first? Who acts first? And who stays calm enough not to act too early? That's the part nobody puts in the highlight reels. The SU-57s closed the distance and the pressure rose. The Typhoon held control and the situation stayed contained. No simple winner, no easy headline. Just a reminder that in modern warfare, the most dangerous moment isn't the explosion. It's the silence right before it. Because the outcome isn't power. It's timing.